We shoot the sick, the weak, the lame. We do our best to kill and maim, because the kills all count the same. Napalm sticks to kids. That was one verse of a poem written by a recovering soldier injured in Vietnam at the U.S. Army Hospital, Camp Zama, Japan, early 1970s. 394,000 tons of napalm dropped on Indochina between 1963 and 1973. Tons, people, not pounds. 394,000 pounds of jellied petrochemical incendiaries alone would be a shitload. But again, tons, people, not pounds. I'm sure I've said at least 33 times in my previous podcasts that those who refuse to learn from history are doomed, yes, I said doomed, to repeat it. Have you ever heard any of the talking heads, the pencil necks, and journalists, and government experts mention the USA has not won a war since a good war fought by the greatest generation? Yep, WW2. When pressed, the pencil necks, who never served, love war as long as you and your kids fight it, will admit that, yep, the U.S. lost in Vietnam. But did they? And what does a war that ended in 1975 have to do with today? I'm glad you asked. Stand by, people, because I'm just getting started on Thursday, the 5th of January, 2023. Oh, yeah, year 322. First of all, quickly, no, yesterday's podcast was not to generate sympathy for crying out loud for poor little old sensitive me. No, my feelings weren't hurt. You can't be a worthy, humble messenger on this cold-ass effing wall with a thin skin. People, that claim that I'm in the dark, or a walking embarrassment to mankind, are incredibly ignorant statements. Simply said, they don't know enough about me to make such stupid statements. And again, for that 33rd time, ignorance is not an insult. We are all ignorant on many topics. Okay. So, did the U.S. lose the Vietnam War? Well, that depends on what or how you define winning. Unlike the good war, WW2, in Vietnam nobody took and held land. An army was kept in the air, burning maximum amounts of fuel. Air mobile, don't you know? Helicopter delivered troops to a hill, drive the enemy off the hill, leave the hill, only to do it again a little later. In other words, rinse and repeat. No land acquisition, no taking and holding land. Vietnam was about numbers, body counts. You know, the kills all count the same. Then you had urban renewal, kinda sorta. You know, a city will bulldoze down old slums and replace them with modern living areas, nice cool parks, and new construction. Out of the old, out with the old, and in with the new. Well, not all bulldozers have tracks on them, people. Some have wings. And you come in, bomb the shit out of a country, destroy the old, and renovate with the new. Just like urban renewal. But countries, people, not just a city. From a globalist perspective, Vietnam was primitive, old school, and it needed to go modern. And in order to merge third world countries with first world countries to perfect their glorious new world order, you have to do a minimum of two things. You need to elevate Vietnam and downgrade the USA to a level playing field. And what did the Vietnam War do to American society back home? It did a lot of damage to the fabric of American society. A lot of radical changes occurred in America that would have been way more difficult to achieve our master's noble goals if we hadn't been preoccupied by that shitty foreign little war. America lost its age of innocence during Vietnam, and it's been downhill ever since. And the pencil-necked chicken hawks who did our master's bidding then are hard at work today. I'm going to play a soundbite featuring former Marine Corps officer Scott Ritter, weapons inspector, who, like Colonel McGregor, see the Russian-Ukraine conflict a lot different than the pencil necks want you to believe it is. But before I do, allow me to take the opportunity to remind you that the Russian-Ukraine issue is just one of 5 super powder kegs just itching for a spark that could trigger the bigger one, WW3 on steroids, because right now, people, we're in WW3 on Valium sedatives. But just wait and watch Israel, Iran, China and Taiwan, India and Pakistan, and of course, North Korea, Rocket Man. It's getting really ugly out here, and the questions we need to be asking is, why does the American people, that's us, with nothing to gain and everything to lose, allow pencil-necked chicken hawks who never met a war they didn't want you to fight, and those pathetic bought and paid for sellout politicians, the ass clowns that can't even elect a Speaker of the House. Why do we let them allow them to navigate our ship of state into very hostile waters? How come? Please answer. Okay, now, the segment I'm going to play, it's a little bit long. Okay, don't shit your pants. Yeah, it's 7 minutes, but you may just want to listen. The U.S. is pushing for a nuclear war. And remember, Russia-Ukraine is only one of 5 serious hotspots that could easily trigger the war of the mushroom clouds. And in my humble opinion, the only kind of opinion a humble messenger can have, that definitely would not be a good thing. So here we go. Bear with me or switch off. I really don't give a damn.
And our guest is Scott Ritter, former Marine Corps intelligence officer and former UN weapons inspector, author of the book Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, Arms Control and the End of the Soviet Union. And Scott, we were just talking about the CIA, so I want to play you a clip of Mike Morrell, who is a former head of the CIA, and he said something on CBS's Face the Nation that I found quite interesting, and I think you will too. So this is Mike Morrell on Face the Nation.
Mike Morrell, I want to know what you think the red line is. From what I hear, it's Crimea. That if the Ukrainians tried to retake that area, that might lead to the escalation that you were just referring to. What are your thoughts on that and the contact the CIA is having with Russian intelligence?
So Crimea is the most important piece for Putin, right, in terms of what he's taken since 2014. But I'm not sure what that escalation could look like. I mean, he doesn't have a lot left from a military perspective. His troops, as a matter of fact, are digging in to defensive positions in eastern Ukraine right now. I'm not sure what he can do, what he has left in his bag if the Ukrainians were to go into Crimea, and I would not dissuade them from doing that.
Director Burns did have contact. He met face-to-face with his Russian counterpart. I mean, the intelligence channels are open. They're open, but when you hear escalation, people fear Vladimir Putin's nuclear arsenal. What is the probability of it being used?
So I hope that part of the communication, right, between Director Burns and his counterparts in Russia are, here is what the United States will do if you were to use a nuclear weapon or biological weapons on the battlefield. And I hope that we've sent a message that our response would be significant and consequential.
What does significant look like?
I think what it looks like is U.S. forces attacking Russian forces inside Ukraine. I think that would force Vladimir Putin to think twice.
All right, that's Mike Morrell, the former acting director of the CIA, speaking on Face the Nation. Scott Ritter, he says there that he thinks Ukraine should go into Crimea, and then he says that the U.S. should threaten Russia with direct attacks on Russian forces inside of Ukraine.
Well, Mike Morrell's an idiot. I'm sorry to say. I mean, I'll say it straight to his face. Hey, Mike, you're an idiot. What a stupid thing to say. I hope when you were the acting director of the CIA, you didn't provide that kind of evidence or advice to the commander-in-chief. If I had been the commander-in-chief and you had said that, I'd fire you on the spot. You're supposed to be a Soviet expert. I mean, Mike Morrell, started out as an analyst in the Soviet analysis division, supposedly the elite division of the group. When I was, I wrote a book, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, and I talked about my interaction with Sova and such. They were pretty good. So he used to be pretty good. What happened? I mean, he has to understand a couple of things. One, it's not just that Crimea's off limits. It's all off limits. Russia has absorbed 4 new territories: Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk. Every Russian official has said this is irreversible. The Constitution, I think it's Article 64, it belongs to Russia. And it ain't going back, ever, ever. So for Ukraine to think it's going to go into Crimea, it has to be capable of defeating Russia militarily. And we just had General Zaluzhny say he can't do it unless you give him 300 more tanks, 500 more armored fighting vehicles, 500 more artillery pieces, and unlimited ammunition. Can't do it. It isn't going to happen. So Mike Morrell sitting there spouting off nonsense. What, he gets him a moment time on Face the Nation? That's it. No one's going to think twice about anything Mike Morrell said on that show in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's the reality of the battlefield. Sits in, hey, Mike, you never wore the uniform of in the military, so you don't know jack about any aspect of modern warfare. Russia's on the defensive. Gosh, I don't know. What do you do before you go on the offensive, Mike? You've never done it, so you don't know. But you anchor your offense with a solid defense. And that's what Russia has done. They've made it impossible for Ukraine to penetrate their current lines. And when the time is right, when those 10 to 15 divisions come rolling in with the most modern T-90, T-80, T-73 tanks, not 300 of them, thousands of them, Mike, thousands of these tanks are going to come in, and there's nothing the Ukrainians can stop them with. Oh, U.S. troops. Wow, there's a novel concept. What, the 4,700 members of the 2nd Brigade of the 101st Airborne Division in Romania? Light infantry, Mike? Light infantry against the Russians? How many artillery pieces does the 2nd Brigade of the 101st Airborne Division have, Mike? Not many. What, 18, 36? And you're going up against the Russians that have thousands of them? Do you understand this is an artillery conflict, Mike? And that the American forces, A, their helicopter, delivered, they're all going to be shot down before they get into Ukraine. B, once they get on the ground, they'll be eviscerated by Russian artillery. And C, whatever's left is going to turn into ground meat as Russian tanks grind them up. What, you're going to bring in the 1 or 2 brigades we have in Poland? What's that, 10,000 American troops? Oh, geez, how are you going to sustain them, Mike? Have you thought about that? Where's the gas coming from? Where's the ammunition coming from? Where's the replenishment coming from? How are you going to maintain them in combat, Mike? I don't think you have more than 2 weeks' worth of artillery ammunition on the ground in Europe, Mike. And so you're going to get into an artillery duel? Again, each brigade has 18 to 36 artillery pieces. You're going up against 5,000 Russian artillery pieces. It's game, set, match, Mike. I'm sorry, Arian, I don't mean to go on a rant like this, but Mike Morrell is just an idiot. He's a moron. He's going on TV saying things he would never say as the director of the CIA. Because as the director of the CIA, there would be consequences for such inanity. He's on there right now talking to other idiots, journalists, who don't know anything about the military as well. They've sitting there, they had a producer whisper in their ear, say X, Y, and Z, so they say it, and then Mike answers, and they nod, and they say something else. They have no clue what he's saying, because if they had any clue, they'd turn to Mike and say, you're an idiot. Why would America ever get involved in a ground war in Ukraine against Russia at a time when Russia has maximized its combat potential, and we have nothing to put on to oppose them?
I have a lot of respect for Colonel McGregor. I have a lot of respect for I think he was Lieutenant Colonel Scott Ritter. I do humbly disagree. Yes, Mike does look like an idiot. Yep, he sounds like a moron. But look at this carefully, people. There are no other options, are there? You can't put U.S. troops on the ground. What's that leave you with? They're itching for it. The U.S. is absolutely itching for a nuclear war. Don't doubt me on that, but that's just my humble opinion. And again, what other kind of opinion can a humble messenger have? So, okay, who won the Vietnam War? Well, not the American public, not the Vietnamese people. Nope, we all lost. But the globalist, if you don't know what that term really means, ask Murray the next time you see him to define that. And try to get him to buy you a drink, too. Good luck with that. The globalist military-industrial complex had a massive victory in Vietnam. And if any one of you swinging dicks out there disagree with me, oh yeah, what about the Tet Offensive of 1968? Oh yeah, what about Khe Sanh? Oh yeah, just leave me a comment. I will get back to you. I would love to get back to you on it. Okay, ran a little long. God damn, I got stuff to do.